Today I want to talk about productivity and productivity growth again. This is a multi-part series. You can watch the other videos by following these links right here. Again, today we want to talk about why productivity growth is so low in developed economies, especially the United States. Now, as a refresher, we looked at this particular measure of productivity growth, very volatile, but we saw an average of 2.2%. We looked at the period from 2004 onward. Here, that gray line saw an average of 1.6%, considered pretty weak. We also looked at 2010 onward. That's this yellow line right here. That is 1.3%, and that's considered pretty dismal. Now, of course, the big question, $64,000 question today, and always is why? What's going on here? Well, one school of thought is we're just measuring it wrong. There's two ways to think about that. Either we've been measuring it wrong the whole time, or something has fundamentally changed about the economy and our old measurements no longer work. So let's take a look at some thoughts here. All right. One is all these free apps, these free goods and services, right? So think about your smartphone, your tablet, your computer. All this stuff is free. It's an advertising-based revenue stream. And we're just not capturing that because there's no dollar value associated with that. Counter argument would be, well, hey, the same thing was true with television, and it just wasn't a big deal back then. We also think about, well, are we trying to measure production and business? Or are we trying to measure consumer welfare? And I think the argument is, well, the answer to that would be, well, we're not trying to measure consumer welfare. The other thing is, even if we came up with some way of adjusting for this, it just would not account for the shortfall we're seeing from that 2.2% down to 1.3%. So this clearly isn't the whole story, even if it is a tiny little bit of it. One thing we could think about is the computer chip industry. So as you know, these chips are getting better and better and better and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. As they get cheaper, it's less dollar amount. So we're producing less. However, if we think about this, when the big declines happened in the 95 to 04 period, when productivity was high, and we've seen fewer gains from 04 onward. So if we were to make this adjustment, it would only exacerbate the problem and have a bigger impact on that period where we actually saw some pretty decent productivity growth. Another school of thought here is like, well, think about financial insurance, real estate, especially the service industry. It's pretty hard to measure these things. And one of the issues is, well, we need to have some inflation measure, the CPI, in order to make adjustments to make this a real number. And 1994, 95, 96, we were seeing some kind of implausibly negative productivity numbers here. Greenspan got involved and said, hey, it must be that the CPI is wrong. They put some pressure on them, even though they're supposed to be independent. They did make some minor adjustments here, which kind of corrected a little bit of this productivity problem. Incidentally, I think this is a topic where we're not at all in agreement on it. I have some other videos where I talk about inflation measures, and I have some concerns there myself. You can watch those videos by following these links right here. Now, something else we thought about here is, well, maybe it has to do with new products, right? So you think about the time it takes for a new product to come out and before it actually gets into the CPI is the time period when the price is really declining. We're not capturing that. That would affect productivity numbers. Also think about product quality. We do make some hedonic adjustments to the CPI for product quality, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I understand them. If we're not fully capturing that again would also contribute to these declining productivity numbers. Now, in terms of this product quality, let's think about cameras, right? So if you think about 2000, about 80 billion photos were taken. 2015, 1.6 trillion photos were taken. Giant increase in production of photos, but the cost to take those 80 billion was about 50 cents a pop, and the cost to take that 1.6 trillion was about zero cost because we went from film to digital. That is a problem because we are basically declining productivity in dollar values, but increasing productivity in the actual photos taken. Other thing you might think about is in the US in particular, a lot of the innovation takes place here, but the actual manufacturing takes place in other places. So there's kind of this shift when the actual productivity is really there. Another thing you might think about is in the medical field, how do we want to measure productivity? Is it cost? Those are certainly increasing, but also there's lives saved, right? If you think about statin drugs and other things like that, we've seen some big improvements there, but because there aren't a dollar value associated with the human life, we're not capturing that productivity. So maybe there's something to be said for measurement errors and how can we correct this? Very difficult problem, but that's just some food for thought. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm Brian Kozlowski. Thank you so much. Happy trading out there.